Hello, 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 everybody. I am the King of Nightmares, and you are currently watching Horror, Gore, and Lore as we present to you Echoes Part 1. So, I would like to give a very big thank you to Baba Nara, or Nura, excuse me. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Let's see, is that how you spell it? Good evening, good sir. Good evening. Yes, Baba. Maybe it's Baba. I'm going to say Baba Nora. So we're going to do it in English. So they sent me this game to stream. Thank you, developers. And this is what they said. Hello, our horror visual novel, Echoes, will be published today. We would be glad if you turned your attention to it. So, here we are. Doing the developer stream. Let's see. Skip. I don't know. Alright. Let us start. On October 28th, 2019, I took the train to complete a business that I should have completed many years ago. Oh, okay, so I just click. The road into the depths of Lingrid region is going to be a long one. My family owned a country house there. I used to spend nearly all my holidays there. A big cottage village surrounded by great many semi-abandoned villages. Even in my childhood, they've been dying out. The villages, their communal farms, and the people. In those days, I was friends with this one girl. When we were 8 or 9 years old, when we first met. It's a funny story. Even absurd in some sense. There was a wedding in our neighboring village, and according to the old tradition, the road was symbolically blocked with a ribbon to stop the newlyweds. The newlyweds that went through our village were to stop and treat everyone who was present. Candies to children, vodka to adults. I remember a crowd of people gathered and have to wait tiresomely long for the newlyweds' arrival. Right there on the road, 20 people or so. Maybe even 30. Everybody was in high spirits, talking about something and laughing loudly. As soon as they hear the car roaring in the distance, they spread to the sides of the road and stretch a flower-decorated ribbon across it. Soon several cars appeared on the horizon. Then they reached us. They stopped. The bride and the groom got out of the first car and started handing everyone their treats. When they reached us, they stopped. I remember I stayed there right next to the place. There was a huge puddle I used for launching my ship float. I keep forgetting. This is Russian, so the translations may be a little off. A piece of broken plank with a sail attached to it. I would put it in the puddle, hop on my bike, speed up, and ride beside it, and immediately observe the struggle with the waves I produced. After some time, a girl appeared. She rode a shabby bicycle, and she barely reached the pedals of. The rusty frame revealed a few patches of old blue paint, from which one could infer that the bike looked many years ago. I guess the bicycle belonged to one of her older siblings, or her parents. She nearly missed and fell trying to stop the bicycle by the puddle, and yet managed to jump off it up to the ground. With an air of great importance, she reached into a shabby jacket and produced a string of flowers knotted to it. She then approached me and asked for help. Silently, I took an end of the string and looked at her. I could see her light hair peeking out from underneath her hockey cap with a sport print on it. She looked at me severely and showed me where and how I were to stand. Somewhat hesitantly, I asked her about this whole arrangement, and she rolled out a whole full explanation about the wedding, ribbons, and suite. So silly, I thought. Having looked at her for several more moments, I decided to politely inform her that the newlyweds had moved along and the crowd had long since gone. The girl stared at me open-mouthed. Tears welled in her eyes. She sobbed a few times, but made an effort and never let a tear out. She only asked what kind of candies were given. I felt rather awkward. Introspective, perhaps, even somewhat cowed kid as I were. I used to get angry at whimsy children. They downright annoyed me. This girl's resilience won me over. Won me. What a trifle. Some mere candies. Trifle? Sure. But they meant a great deal to her. Her big sad eyes touched me to the core. And since these sweets meant so much to her, I thought I could just bring her a handful from home. And after I asked her weight, I did just that. I had plenty at home anyway. And besides, the chocolate cream ones were much tastier than the sticky sweet fudge ones that sometimes nearly cracked one's teeth. When I put a handful of candies in the girl's hands, she seemed not to believe it was happening. She glanced at me, then at the candies, then at me again, and started to ask silly questions. She asked me how much they cost and what she was supposed to do for them. I remember she wanted to share them with me, but I lied that my teeth hurt and I'd better avoid sweets. And besides, I didn't even want them. I remember how happy she was. She even helped me to produce waves for my ship to struggle with. And that's how we became friends. Her name was Saveta. She would ride to my house to check if I was going outside. At first, it annoyed me a little, especially when older village boys began teasing us. Hubba hubba ding ding, don't forget the wedding ring. Alright, I guess that's the Russian equivalent of the KISSING, all of that. Remarkably, the more we got to know each other, the more inclined I became to think Saveta had lived on another planet. She hadn't even heard of a great deal of cartoons every kid watched back then. She knew nothing about Lion King, Anastasia, whom every schoolgirl was obsessed with at the time, and not even about The Little Mermaid. But she still gladly listened to me talk about them. She reread most of the comic books I gave her so many times she wore them thin. When we became older, I learned that Saveta lived in a small farmstead of only a few buildings that remained. I also learned her family was dreadfully poor. Her parents drunk, and her life was in many different ways from the lives of children I knew. I remember the time I visited her farmstead. It was about 7 kilometers away from our village, going through the god-forsaken backwood road. By the time, there remained no residential houses there, except for her family ones, and a couple of rickety huts that with the windows boarded up. I rode all the way up to our house, but I never forget guts to announce myself, because I could hear her father screaming at her. Furniture rattled inside. Her crying mother begged her husband to stop. Then Saveta eventually lost it and began to cry. I hate myself for not trying to get inside and do something. I simply left. Sure, I could hardly expect to stop a huge drunk man myself, then still being a young boy, but I could at least have informed somebody. I could have called children's services, or at the very least tell the teachers in my school, but I did nothing. It was the end of August. I didn't see her that summer again. It was during the autumn holidays when she knocked on my window again. I was so happy to see all that familiar rickety rusty bicycle with but a few patches of blue paint. I never said a word about that day. I waited for her outside her house. Not worth it. I liked what she would smile no matter what. Then we decided to exchange our addresses and write letters to each other. I still have a lot of them left. It took exactly 1 week for a letter to be delivered. I remember it as if it was yesterday. That's kind of funny. Occasionally, I got so impatient that I had to send her another letter even before the previous one was replied to, right in the middle of a week. so that more letters came back. But we were 13 then. I was 13 and Saveta was 12 to be precise. That winter, Saveta wrote me a letter in which she told me that her father had died. He got drunk and froze to death in the snow on his way to our village in search for more. She took a break from writing then. I worried a lot, but kept writing to her, realizing that she might simply not have time for that. And she soon wrote back. As always, and happy, her tone and hopeful of our meeting soon again, as if nothing bad had happened. The older we became, the better I understood that Saveta's life was like. Our bond grew stronger, and it worried me progressively more. What happens next? We spend more and more time together. We'd always spend time by a bonfire. I even learned how to play guitar for that, never mind my wretched singing. But she liked it. Once her mother visited our house. After her husband died, she'd been hitting the bottle almost non-stop. Auntie Nada, Saveta's mother, made a terrible scene. She roared that if, quote, the filthy boy spoils her daughter, he'd be obligated to marry her, or else she involved the police. Alrighty then. After some more acting up like that, she borrowed some money, and only afterwards she left. I wouldn't forget it. Saveta cried over it and said she was embarrassed and never meant any of this. I spent a while calming her, struggling to offer her some distraction. But the episode left somewhat unpleasant linger in the air forever. I knew that what hurt her the most was the idea that I had always talked to her out of pity. Of course, it wasn't true? I'm going to go with it wasn't true. Over the years, we'd grown very close, especially since she was such an open person and saw me in the likes of her older brother. Naturally, I was proud of it, although I did blame myself sometimes too. But I believe everyone would want to be the bravest and the smartest for somebody, especially when you don't have to do anything for it. Now I'm starting to get sick of myself. One more year passed. We talked more and fantasized about our future. It was playing with harmless ideas at first, but then our conversation started to tend towards us pondering over where'd we go after school. I felt awkward during one such talks when I realized Saveta is unlikely to be able to go on studying anywhere. A village school education wouldn't do even remotely hope for qualifying for free tuition. The fight for scarce state scholarships is vicious between crowds of winners of various competitions and those who finish school with excellence. There was no use even mentioning paid tuition. The costs and questions are considerable even for most even nowadays, and then they would downright outlandish. And thus it meant the best case scenario was for her to go to the local trade school. I followed how year after year she gradually adopted this prospect. Each time she thought about it, she grew sulkier. Her dreams faded, like footprints did on a muddy road after a rain. I too have been getting all the more fascinated and carried away fancying about my upcoming student life. All the new friends I were to meet, new hobbies. I tried not to talk about it with her so as not to escalate an already staining issue. The one nobody dared bring up, the one that hung thick in the air anyway. What happens next? We're different kids from different families. Will we still keep in touch when we're adults? Most likely not. Strongly, though, I might want it. We probably won't. That's the way it usually is with people. On summer of 2005, when I was 16 and Saveta 15, her mother hung herself in their house. Well, things have escalated now. Saveta didn't cry. She just stayed silent, replaying something random once in a while. I didn't know how to react. I didn't have any words to say. I even promised to myself to marry her if I had to, but I'd never leave her alone in hardship. My mother and father worried about her too. Fortunately, some distant relatives of her deceased father covered most of the funeral expenses. They stayed in her house till it was all over. As soon as they left, Saveta rushed to our house, tossed her cranky bicycle by the puddle, and said she was afraid being alone in the house. My parents treated her with tea all evening and topped it up with all kinds of sweets. They even let her stay in their house for a few days until she felt better. I gave up my room to her, myself sleeping in the kitchen on the big sofa we fortunately had there. And the next day, me, Saveta, and my parents went to her house to help her bring the mess there in some kind of order. Besides household chores, there was a heap of issues on a different nature. How is she supposed to live? Is there any relative who is to take custody of her until her coming of age? Should she live in the house at least for a while and move to somewhere else, to some of her relatives? A couple of times, Saveta left for her house, rejecting any help. She then returned in the evening and timidly accepted the dinner offered to her. The dinner she invariably insisted to pay back for the helping around the house. One evening, Saveta said it was time for her to move back. Despite my parents' pleas to stay, she did leave for her house. I could hardly find words to comfort her, and this whole thing felt like it was for the better. Everything that had happened. Sure, I realized thinking that there was nothing wrong, but in any case, her alcoholic dad won't pester her anymore. And her mother wouldn't ever humiliate her. Of course, I never said it out loud, not to my parents, and especially not to Saveta. That evening, nearly sleeping in my bed, I noticed a thread-like hair. I enjoyed examining it in the darkness. Then I had a dream. In the dream, it was already the morning of the next day, and my family and I busy around the kitchen, preparing dishes and setting the table, waiting for guests to arrive. When the table was set, I and my parents sat on the side of it and waited. After some time, my grandmother, who died when I was little, came in. We cheered and met her with each giving her warm hugs, and she sat opposite to us. Joking loudly, she talked to my parents, occasionally glancing at me and giving me a smile. She drank tea and ate the delicacies we made. After some more time, Saveta's dad arrived. He issued a grave greeting and silently sat right beside our grandma. Seeing him at our table was quite awkward, but the dream somehow made it feel acceptable. Next guest arriving were some more while was Saveta's mother, also somewhat grim, although laughing at times and talked with my parents. The deceased were sitting calmly drinking tea, helping themselves to the treats, and keeping a friendly discussion about something. It's strange, but although I clearly understood that they all were dead, it still looked convincingly real in the dream. Then the door flung open next time. Saveta entered. My parents and I were very happy to see her. She gave a modest smile and were about to sit down next to her parents. Seeing that, my mother jumped up and screamed in fright. I believe that's how you pronounce Saveta's true name. Saveta? Saveta, what are you doing? Those places are for the dead. Do come sit with us. Saveta but apologized shyly and proceeded with her intention. There was a dead silence at the table, and then I woke up. In the morning, my parents shared with me, grimly yet carefully, the news our neighbor had brought. Saveta died that night. She hung herself in her house. Many years have passed since then, and I haven't been there once. At first, I just avoided this place, and then I forgot about it. And now my parents decided to sell the house. The buyer had been found. I found about it yesterday, and until this day, I haven't been able to get over these gnawing memories. I've never visited her grave. Besides, I am to return her something. And then it's their house, which I really want to see. My station. I'm not used to getting here by the train. I usually come with my family by car. I don't even seem to recall how the station looks. It's time to go. Alright. So, if you couldn't tell, there's a shit ton of reading that needs to be done. So, before I continue, how is everyone enjoying it? How is the volume? What is everyone drinking? And please forgive me, for I am going to be drinking quite a bit during the stream to quench my throat. Especially reading all of this. And I should also mention that there is a contest currently on the Horror, Gore, and Lore Discord channel So please join the Discord if you have not already, and go to the contests tab to get entered in for a free game, and just follow those rules, and, well, go from there and see if you get entered for the contest and win. Best of luck to everyone who enters, and the drawing will be next Wednesday during the stream. So, please get it done by then. I will be posting in the Discord about it regardless. And volume is good, coffee, and it's interesting so far. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out. As I 82 bends, as am I. Once outside, I felt damp, chill air bit at my skin. It was only after the train departed that I finally understood where I was. This is the place of my happy childhood, and now it wasn't happy at all. Gray sky over a dilapidated station, and a lonely man waiting for someone. A gust of cold wind, snapped me out of my thoughts. I should go home fast. Everything seemed much more familiar now. Passing through the village, one gets to the highway, and our village is just half a kilometer away from there. Right behind it, there is a road leading to the cemetery. Passing the cemetery, you can get to the road that goes to their farmstead. I wonder if anyways was it gloomy around here? Was it us being children that it all passed unnoticed? Or was the place really more joyful and happy? How strange. Still, there was some appeal to this place, despite seeming inhospitable. What? Despite seeming inhospitable. The scenery around us was soothing. I remember Savetta and I riding this road. I took sandwiches and lemonade, and we took off to the neighboring villages. That was our little trip to the faraway lands. Faraway lands, not faraway. Ha! Nothing has changed. Even the puddle. The road was never patched. It was there when I played with my ship. It was there where we first met. Perhaps nothing has changed at home either. I felt for the house keys in my jacket pocket and squeezed them. Should I stop by or go straight to the cemetery? After all, I still have to check the house before selling on my way back. Oh! Alright, so this is how we play this game. Enter the house or I go there on the way back. So, this is why it's now important for you guys to be paying attention, because I'm going to leave it to you. So, which one? Enter the house or I will go there on the way back. And this is in regards to my house, not Savetta's. So, on the way back. I remember our riding up and down this road. It's funny, when I was little, I wasn't allowed to leave the village, and Savetta could ride wherever she pleased. She always ride down here, so far away from her farmstead, to me. On the other hand, I doubt anyone cared. Maybe somebody did give me a lift, though. That'd be great. I would save so much time. Perhaps I even have enough time to see her grave, her house, and maybe catch the night train back, to avoid spending a night here. Or should I not hurry at all and simply stay there for one night? One way or another, it's a long way to walk. I wish I had my bicycle, but it's long since gone. I wonder if anyone I knew still lives here. And what about those who can recognize me, or at least remember? It doesn't matter, though. I have very little to do before I forget all about this forever. What about Uncle Nura? He used to give us a lift to the river when we were young. Besides, we often visited him at his house and sat on logs together. There was other kids crowded around these logs along with us. On the other hand, he knows too much about our childhood. Knows about what happened. I don't want to stir it up. And somehow, though, I took a turn leading right to Uncle Nura's house. Upon seeing the familiar car, my heart sank uncomfortably. He must be here, and it looked like his goat is still in service. Should I try to talk to him, maybe? He won't say no. I wonder how he's doing. I guess he'll have a hard time recognizing me. A sinking feeling was building up inside. I immediately wanted to disappear or become invisible. Call Uncle Nura, or maybe it's better to find someone I don't know and who doesn't know me. Nonsense! I want to see how surprised he is or move on before somebody notices me. I should probably just take this time every time we decide something to take a drink. You know what? I'm gonna leave it open. Alright, so let's visit Uncle Nura or just keep walking. Talk to Uncle Nura. Nonsense! I want to see how surprised he is. Should I shout for him? Or knock on the window? Or even go inside and knock on the door? No, that's not the way. I knock on the window. Silence. I started shivering a little from nervousness. I held my breath and cringed, as if before diving into cold water. What's the matter with me? Anyway, maybe leave before it's too late. Nobody answers anyways. Perhaps I'll just keep moving on. It will be easier, or knock more insistently and call him by name. I am just going to save real quick. And thank you. I'm going to do this quite some time. Moderators 82 Benz, Phone Spray, and Nightbot, and users a Service Stop, Decilla, and Light of All Fears. Knock more insistently and call him by name. I knock again and shouted out for him loudly. Coughs and steps were heard inside. In a second, a gray-haired old man was facing me. Same as before. If only he becomes shorter than me. And grew more wrinkled. I unconsciously broke into a smile which seemed to confuse him a little. I realized in a second that I was just staring at him, smiling like a lunatic. Having regained my senses, I immediately said hello. Hello, Uncle Nura. I don't think they translated the names correctly, but hello? Perhaps you don't recognize me after such a long time. Don't get mad at me for that. I am Artem's... Oh, God. I'm Artem. We're just going to be using Artem. From that house. You used to give me and Saveta a ride to the river, remember? Temka! Laughing loudly, the old man held out his hand to me. Look at you, grown up all right. I remember a little boy, and here is some chap. Now, how old are you? 30. Well, well. Got yourself a family? Again, pay attention because the names might not be correct, but not yet. Oh, you should. At your age, you should. Why didn't you come all these years? I saw your parents, but never you. You know, studying, working. Well, how are you staying long this time? No, not long. I was thinking of maybe taking a train back tonight. And I'll probably stay for one night. Why so little? Work, you know. I could barely come this time. I really wanted to. Anyways, could you take me to the cemetery? I haven't been there yet. Haven't visited Saveta. The old man darkened. He looked at me with compassion and understanding and said, Why not? But you'll have to wait. About an hour. I'm going for fishing and I'll give you a lift. I can take you to the house too if you like. It went all askew, but it's still there. Great. I'd love to. Alright, then wait. I'll finish my bait and tackle. You may stay here if you want. No, thank you. I still have to check out my own household, so to say. Well then, come back at 3. I'll be ready. Okay, got it. Now completely gray-haired old man smiled broadly again and patted me on my shoulder. Well, then I'll have to go home. I still have to go there. I approach our family house. It's almost the same as before. Nothing has changed. If only there's somewhat time-worn. So many memories. We met by that puddle, and that's the place she always stopped her bicycle and knocked on my window. Not even getting off. I remember it as if it was yesterday. Cold, strong wind started again. I think I could spend hours like this, just standing, contemplating, remembering. Now I can understand why old people often silently look into the distance. I took the keys out, walked to the porch, trying not to think about anything else. Perhaps, if my childhood had a smell, it would be it. The house was cold and damp. Without people, houses became cold and dead so quickly. My parents were still here this summer. And nevertheless, the house feels abandoned. I wonder what Skevetta's house feels like. I think it's been robbed empty of furniture. We'll see. But first, I need some rest and time to collect my thoughts. For a second, I thought I was 14 again. It's hot outside, I have nowhere to hurry, and I hear her bicycle creaking. I get a glimpse of her light hair. She's going to knock on my window now. She will. The wind howled, and I could feel its coldness even inside. Suddenly, there was a knock on the window. I shuddered. What? Somebody knocked? Or maybe it's just a bird. Or some neighbor checking on me. I can't hear anything. I went to the window. It's cold and empty outside. I recollect myself and decide to go see my room. Nothing had changed, only became damper. It's right here where I spent the brightest time of my childhood. Having dropped my backpack by the bed, I felt an irresistible urge to have some rest. Relax in the room or score in the shelves and collect things that may have been useful to me. Get some rest. I hardly slept tonight, and I didn't sleep well on the way, or I will have time to rest. I better see what's left of the supplies. Supplies. That's what I was thinking. I checked everywhere I could. Kitchen shelves, stashes in the closet, drawers, containers of all sorts, and my desk. I saw lots of things I have memories associated with. Toys, food my parents left here in summer, but everything was useless for the most part. The rest, anything I thought I could use, I brought here. I piled on the desk. I'm not even sure. Do I really need anything of these? Well, maybe this old Soviet flashlight I replaced batteries in straight away. I always took it with me wherever I walked Savetta home. I'll take it in case I stay late. I also found my first pocket knife with a spoon and a corkscrew. I don't think I need it. Just memories. I found some rather particular items among stashes. A can of stew meat that wasn't expired, and half a bottle of pepper vodka. 80 proof. Simply put, it's vodka with hot pepper. Mighty. I'm surprised considering my parents barely ever drank. Must be leftovers from the summer they kept to use in case of colds or bad spirits. I decided that I should take some. What should I take? Take a bottle of pepper and stew, only a knife with a flashlight. They won't take up much space, or take everything. I am thinking everything. But that's just me. Because I feel like with this game, it is a graphic novel, lots of reading, but I feel like there's going to be some do or die moments later in this game that, with the right supplies, we'll be able to either survive a little bit longer, or at least win our way through. Take everything. As I was packing my backpack, I suddenly felt a thing I came here for. A slam book, sure. They were quite an entertainment in my childhood. All of these questions, I was the first to answer them, and the first and the last. I never gave it back to her. For the last several years, I've had nightmares because of it. It's not about the slam book, of course. It's about my nagging sense of guilt, for words vainly unspoken, a sense of inherent and ultimate transience of all and everything. I got the idea I need to return the slam book just a couple of years ago, and the memories along with it. I'd entertained the idea for so long, and now I'm here again. You will soon have it back, very soon. I haven't even said goodbye yet. Well, maybe it's all for the better. If it's so hard on me now, I can only imagine what it'd be like then. That's it. It's time to go. I look around the room once again. It was in this bed that she rested the last time, the night I found her hair. Maybe I'll find something now. Nonsense. The bedding has changed and washed hundreds of times since then. It's time to go. I went out, locked the door, and took another look at the house. Nothing. I'll be back in the evening. I have one last, most important thing to do. After that, I forget this place forever. When I got to Uncle Yura's house, I found him already standing by the car. He was packing his fishing rods, and he looked at me again and smiled. So, what? Ready? Always ready. I responded with a light smile. Then get in. Except there is a problem. I haven't put the passenger seat back in place after the last fishing. We went ice fishing, and I had to remove the seat to make space for the pork belly stove. You don't mind a little bouncing on the rods in the back? It's nothing. We bounced before. It was fun. Yeah, all right it was. Well then, get in. The rods are in, the bait's in, everything seems ready. Well, God help us. Rattling, the goat began to gain momentum and started to carefully move along the narrow country road. The road was getting worse by the minute. Uncle Yura spoke up immediately. Well, how are you? Tell me. I don't recognize you at all. I thought, who is that man? Guess who? It's our Tempka. All grown up. Do you work? Yes, I work. I do escape rooms. Oh. Escape rooms? What are those? Challenges and tasks for some sorts? Exactly. Oh, I feel like this is this type of game. We're going to do an escape room style. This should be interesting. It's a small company, one of the pioneers of the kind in our city. It's called Locked Up. Wait a minute. Sorry, give me a moment. That sounds way too familiar. Actually, hold on. Locked Up? Alright, let's see. It could just be me, but that sounds like something we've played here before. Or at least something that's on our game list. You know, it could be on the game list. That, again, I want to say we have it. Locked Up. I apologize that you actually can't see what I'm doing right now, but... Alright, yes, we have the game Locked Up. Alright, and actually... reading the description, this sounds like these two worked together. So, anyways, it's called Locked Up. We occupy lots of locations in the city center, meaning rooms are decorated in different styles. People are locked inside and have to face puzzle and tasks of all sorts depending on the legend. And I see you keep up to date with modern events. Where did you learn about escape rooms? Me? I heard about some of those on TV a couple years back. Some drunkards locked themselves up in such a room and drank vodka instead. It all ended with a fight. They had to call the police. Yeah, it happens. People of all sorts come to play. There are some freaks on this planet. Can't argue with that. And do you have fights there too? Never happened to us. Besides, the building has security. But drunks do come often. They often gripe for no reason. But the sober ones sometimes excel the drunks. They might break something, or get angry and act up when they can't solve something. Oh, what is wrong with them people? I mean, whom are they getting angry at and for what, eh? For the lack of wits? If I know I'm not smart, why would I go in there at all? Or else why would I get offended? The funny thing is, it's not even about judging one's intelligence. It's all done for fun. There are operators who also give you a clue. Sometimes people rely entirely on those clues. Of course, operators too come in all shapes, different shapes. But they never refuse giving a hint or laugh at a person who can't solve something. It never happens. Do people fail even with all the clues? Well, people are different. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes the puzzles are actually challenging. We chatted the whole time. About my job first, then about my parents, then about the house they intend to sell, and then about the past. The good old times. We remembered our rides to the river. The way we used to go away on bicycles so far, my mom would look for us all around the village, and then we fell silent. I was looking at the road and relapsed into my thoughts. Soon more holes and puddles began to appear on the road. Forest walls pulled closer and closer to the road, and the old UAZ, slowing down, began to waddle from side to side, much like a small schooner. So strange. Just this morning, the arches of St. Petersburg were over my head. I passed by numerous memorial tablets that reminded one of the rich history of the city. I wonder if these places have their own history. Of course they do. It's just... does anyone know about it? What was there hundreds of years ago, and thousands? I know the answer, though. It was all the same. The forest. And nothing else. Our goat was crawling over the road bumps, and soon the forest split. When we reached a small meadow overgrown with tall grass, Uncle Nura stopped. Here we are. Shall we go? I want to go too. It's been a long time since I visited Saveta's grave. After some wandering among the graves, we came to a small fence. I remembered the place immediately. We used to come here to visit her father's grave. And then I saw a new tombstone. And her photo. My stomach clenched. I think if I were here alone, I wouldn't be able to hold my tears. She looked exactly the way she did the last time we met. That's the way I remember her. I was about to reach into my backpack for something I came to return, but I stopped for some reason. No, not now. Not in front of somebody. Ah, life, said Uncle Nura and sniffed. Wait, I'll be right back. He went to his car and disappeared for a few minutes. He returned with a bottle of vodka and a snack. We should honor their memory. Come on. Wake Saveta with Uncle Nura? Sure, or of course. I mean, I don't know. One's like, sure, why not? And then the other is like, hell yeah, let's do this. So, yeah, it is. It's on you guys. Sure. It's good to have a snack. Drinking on empty stomach can get you well plastered. We drank 100 grams each and ate some brown bread with onion. It was an unpleasant burning sensation in my stomach. After eating brown bread with onions and drinking vodka, I would believe so. Well, I go to these parts for fishing. Come visit Savetta's grave from time to time. Poor girl. And what could she do in such fate? Let's have another. Have another drink? Speaking of another drink, I sure do. Well, of course we do. That's how it is. Young people die for nothing, and old people are left alone. It doesn't get any worse than when the old outlive their young. I wonder if Uncle Nura had children. I haven't even thought about it. Ask about the kids? Alright, this time I'm not taking a drink. We did just have some after all. This is an interesting game, to say the least. I'm actually really excited about this. Thank you again, Baba Nura, for sending us a free copy of this game. This is actually quite intriguing. And it's allowing some people to interact. So, kids, all right. We ask about, do you have children? Me? Yes, I had a son. Ooh, touchy topic. He died in his youth. He worked and lived in Pakalevo. He had official residency there. He was buried at the cemetery there. What happened to him? He was killed in a drunken brawl. I always come to his grave on his birthdays, too. Let's drink for him, too. I shouldn't have asked. But I can't refuse now. Uncle Nura poured some more into my glasses. And once again drank without clinking our glasses. Okay, now what? You better tell me. Do you get paid well? I used to be enough. Now it's become trifles. I'm going to quit. Yeah. These days, the only people who have money are those who steal from the state faster than it does from them. And what are you going to do? What's the plan? Honestly, I've always wanted to write. Really? And what do you want to write about? About all of it. About us. About all the different ways of life. About how people died. Then we remember them until we die. Oh, come on. Who needs it? Who would read such a thing? Us. People need love and everything to be good. And this whole deal, people don't give a damn about it. Uncle Nura waved his hands angrily and walked away. He stayed silent a little longer, and then he spoke again. So what? Another one? Have another drink with Uncle Nura? Jeez. He's trying to either drink us under the table, or we be next. Alright. What? I don't drink, to be honest. I just didn't want to offend you, so I drank with you. But I can't keep on or I'll be sick tomorrow. You won't offend me in the least. I'm not forcing you. Said Uncle Nura, drank a shot, and sniffed off his sleeve. Alright. Shall we go to the house? I want to stay here a little longer. Alone. You go. Don't wait for me. I'll stay a little longer and then I'll go to our house. And I'll come to you on the way back. You'll be on the river, right? Well, Yes, below the island. Do you remember how to get there? Sure. I remember everything. All right then. I won't bother you. Uncle Yura left. Then I heard his UAZ start. I left outside and sat down on the ground near the grave. After another look at her portrait, I sat down closer and began to dig the soil on the grave with my hands. The soil had hardened over the years, but it still yielded, clogging under the fingernails. I dug a small hole, took out the scarred notebook from my backpack, and carefully placed it into the hole. I covered the notebook with ground and leveled it. Then I sat down beside and stared at the portrait of my childhood friend. That's it. It's done. The cold wind blew again. I feel like I could sit there forever. It's been so many years since I've seen her face. It's only here, in this photo, that I reminded myself of all of her features that had faded in my memory over the year. Yes. And we did have photos from the childhood. My parents photographed us, but most of them were kept in Saveta's house. I only had a few where we were very young, but there were other ones too. There were many of them. Everything is lost. What about she had? Do they still exist? They must be in her house. I hope to find at least something there. I've got to go there. It'll soon be dark, and I'd like to get back to our house before that. I stood up and looked at her grandmother's grave next to hers. Oh God. Zipoloskiva NS. 1916 to 1986. Strange, because Saveta mentioned some grandmother who sometimes visited them. So it wasn't her. Maybe it's not a grandmother at all, but some close relative. But what about her grandmother? I never heard of her dying. And when Saveta's mother died, there didn't seem to be any old people among the relatives. I wonder why they haven't sold the house yet. Doesn't matter. It's time. Alright, as I walk along the puddled road, I can feel my wet socks sticking to my feet. As soon as I get to their house, I should try wringing and drying them somewhere. I just hope not to get sick. Else, if I'm stuck with fever, my parents will have to pick me up from the village. It's nice to have somebody who can pick you up or visit you. Maybe it's all for the better. Everything that happened. Nobody knows what her life would have been like. A strong wind blew again. Much stronger this time. It's kind of windy today. After a while, the road revealed a gap. There we go. Almost there. There it is. It's right here where I was standing that day. The day he screamed and the house rattled. Those screams. I wonder how often it happened. If only he knew how it would have ended. What if all it would have led to? If only he knew anything at all. The windows are intact, their house isn't burned. Looks like it has stayed untouched all these years. There must be something left. Her things, photos, maybe something else. Something must have survived. The house isn't near its collapse, although it used to be much higher. Now it reaches for the ground, following its former residence, and the road wasn't overrun with weeds then. The forest is quick to take its toll. Wait a little longer and there will be no traces of their lives left. Nothing at all. Only the forest. Similar to what happened to neighboring houses, the tall grass has taken over everything. And may even have happened before in these parts. Who knows how many times these lands have uninhabited and then repopulated over thousands of years. As I stood in front of the house, doing my own business, first raindrops fell on me. They turned into a downpour very rapidly. A cursed place. I should get inside before I soak to the skin. I walk around the house, then over the fallen fence, I go to the front porch. The door, slightly askewed, was unlocked. This whole thing is so strange. In theory, the house should now belong to her relatives, but it doesn't even have a lock on it. If the family doesn't keep an eye on the house, why hasn't it been sold yet? Could it be the local fishermen tore the lock off? I carefully opened the sagging door on the porch, walking up the steps and into the house. Creaking floorboards broke long silence. The hallway was dark. Even the wide open front door leading from the porch to the hallway didn't provoke enough light. I took out my phone and decided to use its flashlight. Doors creaking, boards and on the floor, some rags, and the cold. The door on the left was the biggest, must be the one leading into the hut. A few doors on the opposite side probably led to the storage rooms. There was also something at the end of the hallway, perhaps a toilet or a veranda. There was also a staircase leading to the attic. I'll definitely need to look around, but later. I moved to the door leading inside the hut, feeling the memories begin to surge somewhere in the back of my mind. The house was dark. Alright, so, we are going to save. And we are actually going to stop. I do apologize that we're not doing 2 hours. I didn't think it was going to be this long, and my throat is already starting to hurt me. So, we're going to end it right here. And seeing as though this is a developer stream, and we stream every Saturday when we have it, I will not be streaming next Saturday due to the upcoming holiday. So, I would like to thank everyone here for joining us for Echoes. I do apologize that we are ending it an hour early, but again, didn't realize how much reading this was going to truly be, and my throat is already feeling it. So, hopefully the next time we stream, my throat will be a little bit better, and I will be able to play at least 2 hours. This is really cool so far, says Age of Benson. It most certainly is. I am quite enjoying this, even though it's not a horror, and so far there is no gore. The story is very intriguing, and I'm actually really excited to see what happens. But anyways, I would like to thank the moderators 82Bens, Phone Sprite, and Nightbot for being great moderators, as well as the users 11 Marceau, a Service Stop, and Odysseia. Thank you all so very much. Thank you for the stream, and you, sir, have a great night. You as well, 82Bens. Thank you everyone for coming to watch the stream. I have been your host, the King of Nightmares, and you have currently been watching Horror, Gore, and Lore as we present to you Echoes Part 1. And again, we will have a contest running until next Wednesday. The contest will be announced, the winner of the contest will be announced next Wednesday. And so please join the Discord if you haven't already. Do what the contest rules state under the contest tab, and you will be entered to win a free game just in time for the holiday season. So, again, thank you all so very much for joining us this evening. I have been your host, yet again, the King of Nightmares, and you have been watching Horror, Gore, and Lore presents Echoes Part 1. But until next time, may you all have the sweetest of nightmares and bring those bed bugs into bed with you. They need a warm place to stay, as always. It's getting cold and it is snowing. But anyways, till then, sweet nightmares and good night.